When Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu was initially announced, I was met with many contradictory feelings. I was nostalgic about the idea of visiting a region that defined my early childhood, while also worried about the catching mechanic that was first introduced to Pokemon Go would hurt the overall experience. But after 25 hours, 118 unique Pokemon caught, and once again becoming the Kanto Pokemon champion, my fears about the method of catching Pokemon had practically disappeared. But that isn't to say that I didn't come across a multitude of other issues that kept this game from being great, especially when compared to other games in the franchise. But before I get to the negatives, I want to start out with the positives. No other mainline Pokemon game has looked this good. While not exactly pushing the Nintendo Switch to its limits, or even close to it, the game has a gorgeous cel-shaded look to it that is both charming and pleasing to look at, especially when playing on a TV. Every cutscene in this was exceptionally created as well. Remember when your character watched the SS Anne sail away? Well, now it looks like this. And even more so, battles don't have massive frame rate dips like the last few Pokemon games on 3DS. Everything is smoother with the exception of a few frame rate dips when playing in handheld mode. It is worth noting that these frame rate hiccups happen mostly when interacting with my partner Pokemon. Now let's get to the elephant in the room. Catching Pokemon is almost exactly the same as it was in Pokemon Go. Pokemon appear on the screen, which allows the player to choose which Pokemon they wish to encounter, or just bypass them all if he or she wishes. Once walking into the desired Pokemon, you're able to catch them straight up. With the exception of a few Pokemon, there will be no battles before attempting to catch them. From the catching screen, you're able to choose between berries and Pokeballs that will influence the probability of catching the Pokemon. Once you're ready to catch the Pokemon, you throw the Pokeball while aiming into the ring that continually gets smaller. The ring will change color from green to red depending on how likely the probability of catching the Pokemon is. Furthermore, depending on what size the ring is when you throw the Pokeball, you'll get ranked from nice to great to excellent. The smaller the ring, the better the rewards you get out of catching the Pokemon. The motion controls worked most of the time, although there were more than a few times the balls would go nowhere where I aimed. But if throwing isn't your thing, aiming in handheld mode is far easier as you only need to press a button to throw while aiming with either the control stick or the gyroscope. This mechanic is the only major change to the Pokemon we all know and love, and it actually isn't as bad as it seems. Catching Pokemon is much faster, and even better yet, grinding feels like much less of a chore this time around. There's even a combo bonus that affects the amount of experience you receive, as well as the chances of spawning a rare Pokemon just for catching a few of the same Pokemon in a row. But if you're worried about battling Pokemon, there are still plenty of trainers littered all across Kanto to test your might, and upon completing these battles, players are rewarded with money and Pokeballs, so I actually never found myself running out of Pokeballs. Unlike the catching mechanic, the battle system is more like what we're used to. Pokemon will learn 4 moves, and learning the type matchups is very important. Although some fights had me gritting my teeth, I was mostly able to breeze through every trainer fight. Even when fighting the Elite Four, there was no need to stock up on any items as my Alolan Raichu was able to handle almost every Pokemon by herself. This game is very easy, so if you're looking for a challenge, you won't find it here. I completed my entire Kanto adventure without a single loss, and there are a few reasons for this. Enemy Pokemon will go down in 1 or 2 hits. This is not an issue related to knowing enemy type matchups. A lot of the time, this applies to moves that are not very effective as well, and the glaring omission of Pokemon abilities makes this much simpler. This game was obviously geared towards a much younger audience that wouldn't be seeking a tougher Pokemon experience. Another feature that hurts this experience was the way the Pokemon box system was implemented. In other games, it was necessary to travel to a Pokemon Center to withdraw Pokemon from a box. That caused players to stock up on items and be careful about their method of taking on battles, because otherwise you'd be punished by having to trek all the way back to a Pokemon Center. This game, however, doesn't have a punishment like that. Instead of the box being placed within a Pokemon Center, the box is inside of the player's bag. This allows Pokemon to be switched in and out on the fly without having to go to a specific place. While some may like the convenience, I actually think this breaks the game. Say your Lapras is severely wounded in a battle. You can just switch it out for a different Pokemon and you're golden. This essentially makes the game go from an adventure with a 6 Pokemon party to a game with a 100 plus Pokemon party. And heck, the battles are so easy, you probably won't even have to swap them out anyways. Ease of use isn't the only issue I encountered with the box though. The box's organization leaves much to be desired as it's designed to be pretty much exactly the same as it is in Pokemon Go. That means Pokemon are just thrown around in there, and even if you decide to organize it a certain way, you'll be catching so much of the same Pokemon that it becomes harder and harder to find a specific Pokemon as you progress later in the game. Knowing all of this, my biggest issue with the game is how it treats its post-game. For many Pokemon titles, the game doesn't really begin until you enter the post-game. Not just with the idea of filling out an ever-increasing Pokedex, but with Battle Frontiers, Sevii Islands, and flying into space on the back of a Rayquaza to capture a Deoxys. You won't find any creative and engaging challenges like that in these games, however. Sure, you can capture Mewtwo, but other than that, you're just left fighting Pokemon Masters that have been scattered around a region you have already explored that focus on specific Pokemon as well as a few surprise trainers. The absence of a robust post-game makes this entry feel hollow and hopefully isn't a sign of what to come in future installments. I also wasn't thrilled about how co-op was used in this game. Second players can pop in and out at practically any point in the game by shaking the second controller, but once that's done, the game gets further broken. The second player has no input on what happens on the field as the first player is still in charge of all interactions, but catching Pokemon is significantly easier with the second player as you can achieve a synchronization bonus when throwing Pokeballs at the same time. And even beyond that, battles are extremely easier as your team will have 2 Pokemon out on the field instead of 1. You still share the same 6 Pokemon, but even so, most fights will be a 2-on-1 bloodbath. I only see this mode being useful if you're a parent that wants to be able to play an easy game with a young child. Lastly, I want to touch on the Pokeball Plus controller, which I use to play the majority of the game. I have pretty small hands compared to a lot of gamers, but even then, I could feel my hand cramping up when playing for extended periods of time. Having the joystick also act as an A button was also a hindrance, as it caused me to accidentally select the wrong menu items several times. I also kept accidentally rotating the Pokeball in my hands over time as there are no definable grips that tell you how to hold it. This caused some confusion as up would sometimes start to be input as right or left, and I had to keep correcting the way I would hold it. There is also no way to take screenshots or reset the game to my knowledge using the Pokeball Plus, so I always had to keep a pair of Joy-Cons nearby anyways. The added gimmick of holding a Pokeball that lights up and makes noises is fun, but I'm not sure if it's worth the $50 because of these issues. While Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee are fun and faithful representations of Pokemon Yellow, it lacks a lot of what makes Pokemon great. The developers abandoned competitiveness in favor of a much simpler adventure. Gone are things like breeding, abilities, and an enjoyable post-game, while here are things like an enjoyable catching mechanic that works most of the time and easy to win battles. So is this the Pokemon game many have been expecting out of a home console? In short, no it isn't, but there is still plenty of fun here to enjoy while we continue to wait for the Pokemon game we have been asking for. While Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee don't stand toe-to-toe with its previous predecessors, it is still a very enjoyable experience, even though it lacks in the post-game. And with that in mind, I give this game a 7 out of 10, and I'd recommend it if you got a kid. But other than that, I'm Ricky, and I got nothing else to say except don't forget to subscribe, hit like, comment, tell me how I could improve my future reviews. And also Zaire, who is behind the camera, he is going to review a game at some point. Isn't that right, Zaire?
No. Yeah.
Alright, catch you guys next time. Bye.